This hearing of the Subcommittee of State Foreign Operations and Related Programs of the Senate Appropriations Committee will come to order. The subcommittee meets today to review strategies for advancing security and prosperity through international conservation. We have a terrific panel of witnesses, and I very much look forward to your testimony. Ms. Caldwell, Dr. Steer, Mr. Sabunya, I appreciate all three of you joining us today. I've had the chance to work with you and to review your testimony, and I'm very optimistic we will have a positive and constructive hearing today. I will note at the outset, some of my colleagues may be coming and going. There are conflicting hearings today. My ranking member on this subcommittee, Senator Graham of South Carolina, also happens to be the ranking on the full Senate Judiciary Committee, which is right now having a somewhat heated hearing. There is a chance I will step out to go to the end of that judiciary hearing, but I will only do so if another member comes to take over. So I think it is critical that we have this hearing. It is the first after our budget review hearings in which both the Secretary of State and the Administrator of USAID testified. I think this is a critical topic, critical for the United States' place in the world, critical for the relationship between the private sector and philanthropy and government. Those who have worked on, read about, or visited conservation programs know what progress on conservation means for indigenous communities, for efforts to curb wildlife trafficking and illicit finance and to improve security, and for the benefit of livelihoods across the globe, including here in the United States. That is why there is robust bipartisan and bicameral support for that. Like many members on this committee, I've had the opportunity to visit protected and conserved spaces around the world, from Kenya and Mozambique and Rwanda to Namibia, Colombia, and Ecuador. I have done them in partner with my colleagues, in partner with nonprofit organizations, and have seen remarkable and impressive examples of what conservation that is human-centered, that is done in close coordination with indigenous communities, and that is well-planned and well accounted for can accomplish. We are losing the Earth's most vital spaces, the most remarkable parts of creation at an alarming rate because of logging, rapid human population expansion, the demand for agricultural space, for charcoal, for wildfires because of a changing climate. This is in part because the vast majority of gazetted parks, of notionally protected spaces, are underfunded, leaving lands at risk of degradation and wildlife at risk from poaching. Poaching, which, as I've demonstrated in hearings now many years ago to lay the groundwork for the End Wildlife Trafficking Act, funds armed groups and global criminal networks that threaten national security, both here and in many countries around the world. USAID and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service have long been critical partners in addressing conservation challenges, for which Senator Graham and I have worked to increase and sustain funding through this subcommittee over many years. We also recognize governments cannot possibly address this problem alone. I'm encouraged over recent years we've seen significant and growing commitments from philanthropic and private sector actors to support transnational conservation. I'm looking forward to hearing first about how USAID has applied lessons learned from its long history working on conservation and how we can strengthen such efforts, including in partnership with the private sector. Senator Graham and I, along with a bipartisan and bicameral group of my colleagues, have proposed legislation to leverage these philanthropic commitments, the U.S. Foundation for International Conservation Act. This legislation would fund new public-private partnerships for the long-term management of protected and conserved areas, catalyzing substantial additional private investment with a sustained ongoing annual amount of additional public financing. We'll discuss that legislation today and other steps we can be taking to advance our global conservation goals in more detail. Thank you for joining us. I look forward to your testimony. And my understanding from Senator Graham is that he will submit an opening statement for the record. So with that, I'd like to invite our three witnesses to begin with your opening statements. Ms. Caldwell, we look forward to your comments.
Thank you so much, Chairman Coons.